things done. My name is Clementine Tsvetanov, and my husband Krasimir Tsvetanov and I, we are organizer for Insight Seminar in Cyprus. Insight Seminar is a worldwide organization with 40 years of experience, and they provide educational training for companies and individuals to inspire them to live an outstanding life. And the way it's done is by increasing the awareness, the self-accountability, and the loving. And tonight, I have with me a special guest, Leslie Boyer. So Leslie is one of the facilitators for Insight Seminar. For over 20 years, Leslie has traveled across the globe to assist both individuals, business leaders on how to enhance their personal and professional lives. Leslie has coached leaders worldwide in Fortune 500 companies. So this is the top 500 companies around the world. And her coaching program catalyzes new ways of thinking, open up for perception, and develops a deeper empathy of self and others. For several years, Leslie worked with David Allen, which is the author of Getting the Things Done, designing workshops and coaching people globally to implement this methodology. She also does ongoing work with Insight Seminars as a facilitator, assisting people to improve the quality of their life. Leslie currently lives now in Santa Barbara, California. So thank you, Leslie, for joining us for this topic. So moving from self-sabotage to getting the things done. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure. So
thank you for
Leslie,
having me. Yeah.
Thank you for accepting. So Leslie, how are you? How is the quarantine there in California? How is it going?
Well, we were talking before we went live, and it seems that Cyprus is under a lot more restriction than we are in California. We can't go out. We don't have police monitoring our actions, but they've asked us to stay at home, which most people are. So we wear masks and gloves when we go out, and I do go to the grocery store once a week to buy my groceries. But I also live in an area where I can walk. There's a lot of nature here. So I'm home most of the time, but every once in a while, so I don't go crazy, I go out and walk because I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom these days. So most people are at home, but there's a little more freedom here than there is in Cyprus and some other countries.
Yes, yeah, you were telling us, yeah. So Leslie, tonight we'll be talking about self-sabotage. And so what do we do to self-sabotage? What are the things that we do to sabotage ourselves? I realize that sometimes, I really want to do things, and like I want to do a video, for example, and I see myself doing other things, like I will do cleaning, trying to avoid, and my husband will tell me, why are you doing this? Why are you avoiding it? And so why is happening this? Why are we doing this?
Well, I think it can be different for each person. So I'll talk in some general terms here. But I think that a lot of people are finding, with the disruption of their lives with the virus, finding a new routine has been really challenging. Our lives have changed so much. And when our routine is challenged and changed, it can be very difficult. I know a lot of people who say, oh, well, I'm home all the time. I'm finally going to make that video, or I'm finally going to read that book, or I'm going to clean that cupboard. But they don't. So part of it is that when you're in something that's disrupted your routine, you've got to establish a routine. You've got to set a schedule for yourself because that will help you focus. Because when you think of it, most people who go to an office, they're at an office all day and then they come home and do their work stuff or their home stuff. But when you're home and you're working from home and you're not used to that, what can happen is you go, okay, I'm going to do that video. Oh, but I need to do the laundry. So how often when you're in your office away from home Do you stop what you're doing and say, oh, I need to do the laundry, and then you go home and do the laundry? It's too easy to get distracted and mix work and personal stuff. So you don't stop a meeting in an office and go, oh, I need to move my clothes from the washer to hang them to dry. You don't do that, but you do it when you're at home. So we do self-interruption a lot when we're at home. And that's one of the things that we do that sabotages us from getting things done, especially during this time when most of us are home a lot.
Yeah, thank you. So before I ask you the other question, I want to also remind the audience that they can ask question to Leslie. So you can just write in the chat box and then I will ask the question to Leslie. So I want to ask you, so you mentioned that now, yes, we are much more at home, and how can we manage ourselves now that we don't have this routine like we used to have, you know, like going to work in the morning and going home? What can we do for this?
Well, I don't have children, but I have a lot of friends whose children are home right now. And it's been really challenging during this time because children work best with a routine. You get up at this time, you eat breakfast at this time, you dress, you go to school for this amount of time, and then you do whatever you do after school, come home. So they work much better when they're a routine. We as adults are no different. If we don't set a routine, like if you go, well, I can sleep in an extra hour because I'm not going to the office today, I'd say get up at the same time. Have a schedule for yourself every day. And know that there can be some flexibility, but if you make it too flexible, you'll lose your focus and get distracted. So have a general routine. I get up at, I don't know, 6:30 every morning. I eat, shower, I eat breakfast, and I get ready to focus on and identify what you want to work on at 8:30 or 9, just like you're going to the office, and set up a routine for yourself. Because if not, one of my favorite movies is an animated movie called Up. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a really sweet movie. It's about an older man whose wife dies and this young boy, and they become friends. And it's a beautiful story, but there's a dog in the story. And the dog gets distracted really easily. So every time he sees a squirrel, he can be talking, but if he sees a squirrel, he goes, squirrel, and then there's another squirrel, and he interrupts whatever he's doing. And I think that's how a lot of our minds work, is we think of something, go, oh, my attention's over there, and then we feel we have to do something about it because we've thought about it. And that's not necessarily true. So that's one reason that we self-sabotage ourselves, and how to start building, how important it is to start building routines.
So you mentioned now that we are getting distracted, and how can we clear our mind from this? How can we stay focused on what we want to achieve?
Well, as you mentioned, for a number of years, I worked with David Allen, and he wrote the book Getting Things Done. And I worked very closely with him to develop trainings and train trainers and present material. And, his methodology is so good, especially, well, every day, but especially now. One of the best things that I think we can do as part of our morning routine is do what he calls a mind sweep, which means sit down with paper and pen and clear your mind. I mean, dump it out. Anything you can think of, write it down. It doesn't matter if it's big or small or important or not or complex, or, I mean, it could be get dog food. It could be clean the cupboard. It could be write the report for my manager. It could be plan dinner because we're cooking at home. What am I going to have for dinner? So you get everything out of your head. because there's something that happens. Our minds work, again, in a very simple way. It's like if you have a child and you say to them, "You're going to have ice cream later today." What does that little child do all day long? Is it time? Is it time for ice cream? And you're like, "Not now, not now, not now, later." So our minds work a lot the same way. Every time we think of something we need to do something about, it's like squirrel, it's like, oh, and the way we relieve the internal stress of it not being done is we think we'll feel better. Let me go work on it now. And then we can go, ah. The problem is that as soon as you clear one thing off, then all of a sudden something else. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, I was so busy, but what did I get done today? Or, and I have to tell you, I've been a little guilty of this during this time. I've been working on designing a lot of Zoom trainings and workshops, and so it's like I'm working with a team of people, and there's a lot of stuff flying back and forth. And I realized that I sent out an email to a group of people who I was giving instructions to, and when I went back and read the email, I started to sense this is important because, and I never finished it, but I sent the email because I must have gotten distracted by something else. Oh, and then I just went, okay, it's done, and sent it. So it's really hard. David calls those open loops. They're like open pieces that are incomplete. Our incompletions are all these open loops that cycle back around in our brain. Now, and you're like, the way I can feel better is do that. But then we keep self interrupting. And the first thing to do to get control of this is get it all out of your head. Because when you write it down, there's something that shifts in how you look at it, because it goes from the random boop, 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 boop to, oh, you look at it and you start to see it objectively. So you can look and go, oh, not now, not now. Oh, that's important today. Oh, I don't have to do that today. You automatically start a very simple prioritization process with it.
Right, thank you. So I have a Rocco Sec is asking, my schedule list of things to do is always very long. How to make sure you are productive and achieve your goal, but not too harsh on yourself and don't burn yourself out?
Oh, that is such a good question. I've been asked that question over and over again because most of us have so much more we need to get done than we can do in a day. I mean, if you want to simplify your life, sell your children, quit your job, move to the mountains, and start a little bakery. Then you'll go, did I bake enough muffins? My day is done. I'm good. It was a good day. But most of us, our lives are much more complicated. If you want to complicate your life, have a baby. Your life will get a whole lot more complicated. Or if it's not that, get good at what you do in your work and you get promoted, and now suddenly you're managing 8 other people. So we've all got levels of complexity. The thing is, it's not important how long your list is. It's important how you think about what's on your list. So the first step in getting control of your mind is to get it out of your head. But the mind sweep, the mind dump, everything you've dumped out of your head, that list is not your to-do list. But most people act as if it's a to-do list. What you need to do is look at everything on that list and break it down into a very simple action. What is my first step? So a lot of people say, "Oh, I need to clean that back room where I just throw everything, where it's just a mess. I need to clean that room." When people look at clean the room, some part of us thinks inside, well, I have to do all of it now. And that's not necessarily true. What you want to do is break it down into a simple, doable action like clean one drawer. Oh, clean one drawer. So you want the room to be clean, but you put an action next to it that says clean, the top drawer. And if you break it down that simply, that becomes your to-do list. Clean the top drawer is the only thing you have to do. And as soon as you get that done, you feel good about what you've done, so you're motivated to do more, and you put the very next thing on the list. Clean the second drawer. You break it down into simple, doable steps. That creates what I call a real to-do list. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you, Leslie. So, do you have any more suggestion how to prioritize?
Yeah, there are a couple of criteria that we use for prioritizing. One that most people use is, when is this due? So, for example, April 15th, April 15th, what month is it? What day is it? Boy, doesn't it feel like every day is the same? It's so funny.
Yes.
I can't tell, what day did I do that? It's a very different sense of time during quarantine. So April 15th is the day all our taxes are due in the United States. So what I've noticed is there are a lot of people, even though every year April 15th is the same day, a lot of people don't start doing their taxes until April 10th. And then they're under stress. But the due date makes them focus on getting it done, so they get it done. So when there's a due date, and I'm not suggesting you wait till the last minute, but when you have a due date, you will prioritize. You'll start to look at, when do I have to get different parts of that done? So a due date helps us to prioritize. Another thing that helps us to prioritize is by a sense of, what's the consequence if I don't get this done? There may be no due date, but if I don't get some information that I need, it will impact other people. So that becomes a priority, because I need that to keep it moving forward, so that it moves along the way it needs to. The other thing, and this is another criteria that David came up with that I think is really good. If you break everything down into specific actions, you can group your to-do list in categories. So my to-do lists are grouped into a category like home. Only the things I do at home. Now, that list is really long right now when we're in quarantine, but think of, you can break it into another list called computer. So only things I can do when I'm on my computer. So there are going to be times when I say, I've spent enough time on my computer, I'm going to close it down. But let me look at my home list, because now I'm going to focus on that. So you choose what area you're going to focus on. You could have another category now when you're out of when you're, oh, I know, a good one is people to talk to, because there are people I want to stay in touch with regularly. And so I look at it, call my mother, or FaceTime my sister, or call my best friend, or FaceTime or Zoom, whatever, however you want. But there are people I keep a list of that I need to stay in touch with. And so I have a list, so I don't have to go, gosh, when was the last time I called my mother? Was it 2 days ago? Was it a week ago? And so I have a list to remind me, oh, okay, it's time to call her. So you can break out your to-do lists that help you prioritize what's the most important thing to do now. So I gave you a lot on that. I hope that helps. I hope that's useful.
Yes, that's very useful. Thank you. So I have a question. So some people say to-do list make you tired if you don't finish it for the day. Can I burn out or judge myself because I didn't do everything?
Okay, so I got a good answer for that. Instead of focusing on what you didn't do, at the end of the day, make a list of everything you did do and cross it off. I did this, I did this, I did this. There's something that happens when we acknowledge the work we actually did. We feel good, we feel motivated. Even if it was only two things that day, you go, I got that done. So you want to acknowledge instead of focusing on what you didn't do, because there's always going to be more. You can feel like overwhelmed by it, and but I keep a list, a track. I keep track of what I get done during the day. And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I did that. Oh, I did that. And if I didn't get something done, I go, well, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Obviously, it wasn't important enough to do today, and make it okay what you don't get done. Be okay. There's nothing wrong with not getting certain things done. Nobody, as far as I know, has died because I didn't get something done off my to-do list. I didn't die either. So if you're feeling stressed about it, break it down into a simple action and put it on tomorrow only if it is a high priority. Otherwise, you've got to be okay with what you're not getting done. You got to make it okay. I call it being human. We are not going to get everything done. So let's be human, make it okay, and let's focus and acknowledge on ourselves for what we did get done.
And there is also things that also kind of prevent us to do the things we really want, like when we sabotage ourselves, some kind of image that we have about ourselves, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me when you say that is a lot of people have really high standards for themselves. We should on ourselves. I should get this done. I should be more effective. I should keep all my agreements and do everything that I think is important to me. When we do that, we set the standard super high, really high. And many of us, our internal demand is higher than anyone else's demand on us. And when we don't meet our own expectations, we think that by judging ourselves, if we judge ourselves hard enough, our behavior will change. I have never found that to be true. I have found that judgment leads to more judgment and more self-sabotage. If you feel bad about not doing something, you avoid doing it, and then you don't do it, and you feel worse, and then you don't do it, and then you judge yourself. It's not good. So lighten up, lower your standards, make it okay that you may get 60% done in a day. You don't have to get 100%. It's okay. You've got to be flexible and gentle with yourself and accept that you're not going to be perfect, you're not going to get everything done, and learn to relax with being human.
So how can I set up myself to win? So to build up self-confidence during this process when I set up my list, when I do my list, set up my goals.
Well, here's one thing. Most goals, like do taxes, people leave that on their to-do list, and then they think of all the paperwork and all the time and all what it. I go, what's the first thing to do? You break it down really simply, like I said, and it may be gather receipts. Because when you have small wins, you start to build self-confidence, and you start to have small wins lead to big success. So the first thing is really simplify and break down what you do. The other thing is be aware of if you've overcommitted. So if you say, I'm going to do 50 sit ups this week, I believe start simple. break your self agreements down simply. I'm going to do 2 sit ups this week and do 2 sit ups for a week and then maybe add 2 more after that. So most people's expectations are so high. Simplify your expectations and make agreements that are easy to keep. Most people are automatic agreement makers. Someone says, "Can you do that?" "Yeah." "Can you do that?" "Yeah." And then you think, "Oh, I should do this." And you're making a million agreements, but nobody can keep all those agreements that you made. So start to get conscious about saying yes and be okay saying no. Because when you say no, you're putting a boundary around your time and you're being realistic. And people would rather have you say no and know, "Oh, you can't do it," than you say yes and then you never do it. And then they're, "Well, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you?" You're like, "Oh, I'm trying to. And it just creates more stress. So when we keep the agreements that we make, our self-esteem, our self-trust, our confidence naturally starts to build. That's why it feels so good checking something off your list. I did that. I completed something I said I would do. The problem is, as soon as you complete one, you think of 10 more new things you want to do. You got to say no to yourself too. I've worked with people who I've done the mind sweep with, executives, and I have sat for an hour while someone is writing down what's in their head, writing. And when we go back and review what's on that list, I say, "Which one of these do you need to say no to?" And they're like, "Oh, I've got to do them all." I go, "No, you don't. There's no way. You are not going to do this all." So getting real with your agreements. And if you have a lot of ideas that are cool that you'd love to do, park them on a list called someday. Well, I don't have to do it now, but someday I want to go on a trip to Africa on a safari. So you're not thinking, "I should go to Africa. I need to go to Africa. It's such a good idea. When am I going to go to Africa?" You put it on a someday list and you review that regularly and you ask yourself, is now the time to make that a real project? Oh, I look at everything on my list. No, not today. I'm not going to Africa today. I don't have to think about that today. So you start to separate out what you're really committed to doing versus everything that looks like a good idea, sounds like a good idea, that in reality you're not going to get to do anytime soon. That's a long
Yeah.
answer to your question, but there are so many ways to play with this.
Right. Thank you. That's very useful. So I have Rocco saying, "Thank you for this, Leslie. What will be your top productivity tip based on your interaction work with successful business people and business?"
I think it's what I just talked about, managing your agreements, managing the expectations of others, telling them what you can and cannot do. And if you find you're not going to be able to do something when you thought, communicate with them and say, "I thought I would get that done today, but these other things came up. So I'm going to renegotiate if it's okay with you, and I'll get it to you by next Tuesday." So you keep people in the loop of your communication and engaged, so they know, and just be upfront with what you can and cannot do. That really helps people relax and also open their vision into what they've committed to, and their creativity gets higher because they're not being pulled by these other shoulds and I should be on that. It's like, no, dedicate yourself to one thing and feel good about getting that done.
Thank you. I have Erini who is asking, "What if family members judge you that you don't do enough and you get discouraged because you know you are trying?"
Well, that to me is more of a communication issue. A part of it is that's why it's sometimes good to make a list of what you did get done. So when people go, you should have done more, you can go, here's my list of what I got done today. If you think I should have gotten more, what would you do differently? Because it's really easy to judge other people. You didn't do enough. You didn't do what I wanted. But if you come back with, and then it escalates into an emotional conversation. I was working so hard today. You have no idea what I did. Yeah, but you didn't do this. But the kids, and it escalates into an emotional conversation. If someone says, you didn't get this today, you have to look and go, gosh, did I promise that and not do it? I should have told him. And you apologize. You go, oh, I know I said I'd get that done. I forgot or I got sidetracked. So is it okay if I do it tomorrow? So you're open and honest about your ability. And if you go, well, here's the list of everything I got done, how would you coach me in being more effective with my time? So you move it into, here's the information. So let's have a discussion about this because I did the best I could. Because if we accept the blame of other people, we turn that into self-judgment and over-responsibility. And being overly responsible for other people's expectations always creates it creates guilt, resentment, upset inside of us.
Yes, she say yes. I do not communicate right. I avoid it because it makes me stress.
Well, but guess what? By not communicating it, you're stressed. So avoiding it doesn't relieve the stress. It only continues the stress. Talking about it may be a stressful conversation, but if you really go into it saying, I'm doing the best I can, I'm going to ask for your understanding because I want to be understanding for you when you can't keep things. So, and then you start looking for a compromise. You have a discussion. What's going to work? Often in those kinds of communications that create stress is we only focus on why I'm right and you're wrong. And it doesn't solve anything. No, you're wrong because you didn't get it done. No, I'm right because I was so busy and you just don't understand me. So that level of communication is very stressful. If you can learn to ask more questions like, what would you like me to do differently? What is it that, are you feeling not supported by me because I didn't do what I said I would? And how can we work with that? Because I really care about you. Those types of questions drill down into the level of caring and understanding that helps people resolve the issue. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. Those conversations never resolve the issue. But you can't do that with yourself. I'm so wrong because I didn't get it right, didn't get everything done. It's that is a huge self-sabotage. The judgment that we're not doing it right, we're not good enough, really sabotages and undermines our productivity.
Thank you. So I have a question about the communication also. How do we communicate easily with the people that we work with these days?
Well, that's a big question, and it's very broad because if I were coaching you, I'd ask, well, where does the problem show up in communication? So part of it is people have different styles of communication, and people have different needs in what they're communicating. So what I just said a moment ago is one of the best ways to bridge into understanding in communicating. So asking more questions. The percentage of time world-class negotiators spend asking questions when they're negotiating a big treaty or an arms agreement or anything like that, really good negotiators spend 80% of their time asking questions of the person they're negotiating with. Why do you think that is? It's because they want to deepen their understanding of what the needs of the other person is, so that they know how to share what their perspective is with caring and consideration for that other person. Most of us, when we're in stressful conversations, we stop asking questions and we start making statements. So asking questions like, what do you need from me? And how is this going to impact you if I don't get it to you? And how can we work this out so that you get what I want and I can do it in a time that works for me? Those kinds of questions with people at work can be very helpful.
Thank you. I have Yassir qui say, I can get past my bad past. So I don't know if you can.
So there's a simple answer, but it's not always easy. It's self-forgiveness. When we have a bad past and or something that happened to us that we judge as bad or negative, or we did something that was bad or negative, certainly it can have a negative impact. I understand that we all make mistakes. We all have things happen to us that are awful. And then we hold it inside as a hurt or a shame or a judgment. And the thing I have found that works best is forgiving ourselves for our judgment. So it might be something like, and I often recommend connect with yourself. Maybe you put your hand over your heart or over your tummy, wherever you feel the tightness in your body, where you're holding that shame, that judgment, that resentment. And start with, I forgive myself for judging myself as a bad person, or I forgive myself for judging myself for making that mistake. And just starting to repeat the forgiveness starts to soften the place that's been holding our past. And also, there's another thing we can do is make a statement of, I made a mistake, but I did the best I could at the time. It's another way of lowering our standards, like my life should be different, I should be different. It's like, I don't like what happened to me, but I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. So it's about softening the inner dialogue we have around what happened is a good way to begin to release the past.
Thank you. So I have another question. What call it 10 to 10 mean that you make your own list before 10 p.m. Before you go to bed? Do you think this can make you more effective?
Well, I'll tell you, it can make me sleep better because there was a study done where they had people make a list before they went to sleep, and other people who just thought about all the things they needed to get done. And on average, it took the people who just thought about it, it took them 25 to 30 minutes longer to fall asleep. The people who just got it out of their head, their mind relaxed, going, I don't have to think about that because I wrote it down. So it does make a difference. But the key in being productive with that list is how you manage that list. And I've given you tips. Break it down into a simple action. Break it into different categories so that when you're on your computer, you're not looking for something to do at home like the laundry. So it helps you focus. So there are tips you need to apply to managing the stuff you get out of your head that I've mentioned.
Thank you, Leslie. So we have Rocco again who's asking, what's the book that you found recently interesting and would you recommend for people to read? Any kind of book?
Any kind of book. I'm reading a book on how to change corporate culture, but I don't think that's easy reading. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I'm really interested in transformational consciousness. So I read a lot of Bob Anderson's book, and he created something called the Leadership Circle Profile, which is really, really good. If you want to learn about leadership development and transformational consciousness and leadership, I recommend those books. A really good book that I'd recommend for anybody to read is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's about how to identify purpose. Now, he does it in terms of like a corporation and organizations, but there's a lot of really good tips about how to come up with your own purpose. And when we're feeling disoriented because of COVID and the change in our life, it can be a really good time to revisit, why am I here? What's most important to me? Because when you clarify that, that's also a way you can prioritize your life. So if you're part of your purpose here is to raise beautiful, loving children, and your day gets interrupted with your kids because they're home, you can feel okay that they interrupted you because you're devoting time to the thing that's most meaningful to you. And that report, while it may be important, is not as important as your children. So getting clear on your purpose is really important.
Yeah, and we have a lot of time now to reflect and to find out,
Exactly. I also like a lot
So,
of novels, but I'm not going to get into all that. I like business books and I like reading for pleasure, really classically written. Good stuff. Anyway, how are we doing? What else? Anyone else?
I don't see any more questions.
Well,
So
Rocco, you've
I
been
will ask.
very active. Thank you, Rocco.
So is there any recommendation you will say, last advice for the audience you will say tonight on this quarantine?
Yeah.
One thing they could do?
Be kind to yourself. Be kind and understanding that we're going through a global challenge. And for every person, even though the whole world is experiencing the same event, each person is so unique in their story about their experience and what they're going through and what it means for them and the challenges that they're facing. So, my final thoughts are, be kind to yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and be understanding of others. This is challenging us in ways that we haven't been challenged before. So be kind to yourself, speak kind words to yourself, be understanding of yourself and others. And if you can do that for a whole day, that will be your most productive day ever.
Thank you very much. So Rocco say, very good to see you. Greetings from, I think, London.
Nice. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Leslie, for tonight, for all the value you give. And thank you for accepting to be with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you.
And
so thank you all of you.
To everyone out there, take care of yourself. Make a list, but some days you just got to put the list down and watch Netflix and make that okay.
Yeah, the basic self, right? We need.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you. And have a lovely evening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.